stood in the reception hall of Unity's Reach Station, holding a glass of water and trying not to look nervous. The space station floated between Earth and the Empire's territory, a neutral meeting place where humans and aliens could talk without fear. He was only 28 years old, and this was his first big assignment as a diplomatic. Around him, other diplomats from Earth chatted quietly, waiting for the delegation to arrive. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Turned to look, and his breath caught in his throat. They entered the hall like a wave of silver and blue. They were tall, much taller than humans, with pale skin that seemed to glow under the lights. Their eyes were large and completely black, and they moved with perfect grace. At the front walked a woman who could only be royalty. She wore armor that looked like it was made from starlight itself, and a crown of thin metal rested on her head. Ambassador Park, Earth's senior diplomat, stepped forward with a smile. She was a woman in her 50s with hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Welcome, honored guests of the Empire. We are pleased to host these trade negotiations." The princess stepped forward. Her face showed no emotion. "I am Princess Lyra, third princess of the Empire." Her voice was clear and strong, and she spoke perfect English. "I come not for trade negotiations." Smile faltered. "I don't understand, Your Highness, we were told." "I come for my husband." Lyra's black eyes scanned the room and locked onto. She pointed directly at him. "You, of Earth, our families have chosen us to wed. The bond must stand." The room went completely silent. Felt like someone had dumped ice water over his head. His hands started shaking and he nearly dropped his glass. "What?" he managed to say. Lyra walked toward him, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. "6 months ago, your Earth Shadow Council and my Imperial Court made an agreement. To prevent war between our peoples, we arranged a marriage. You were chosen. I was chosen. The treaty is signed. The bond must stand." "That's impossible," said. His voice sounded weak even to his own ears. "Nobody told me anything about this." "Your leaders chose not to inform you," Lyra said. She stopped in front of him, standing almost a full head taller. "But that does not matter. Under law and under the treaty your Earth signed, we are bound to marry. I will do my duty. You must do yours." Ambassador rushed over, her face red. "Your Highness, there must be some mistake. We received no information about any marriage arrangement. This is a trade negotiation." A male stepped forward. He wore robes covered in symbols that didn't recognize. "There is no mistake. High Priest witnessed the signing 6 months ago on the. Your Ambassador Park was there, though you, specifically, were not. The Earth Shadow Council agreed to this marriage to seal the peace treaty. All documents are legal and binding." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. She pulled out her communication device and started typing frantically. Just stood there, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. This couldn't be real. People didn't arrange marriages anymore, not on Earth, not in the 23rd century, and certainly not without telling the people who were supposed to get married. "I need to see these documents," said firmly. "I need to contact Earth immediately." "Of course," the High Priest said. "All will be, but the treaty stands. The marriage must proceed within 30 days or the peace agreement becomes void." Lyra looked at with those strange black eyes. "I understand this is unexpected for you. Humans have strange customs, but among my people, arranged marriages are normal. It is an honor to serve your family and your people this way. You should be proud." "Proud?" found his voice again, and anger started to replace the shock. "You want me to be proud that I'm being sold off like property, that my own government made decisions about my life without even asking me?" For the first time, something flickered in Lyra's expression. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. "You were not asked." "No, I wasn't asked." His voice rose. Other diplomats were staring now, but he didn't care. "On Earth, we believe in freedom. We believe people get to choose their own lives, their own partners. We don't just accept what we're told to do." Lyra's face went cold again. "Then perhaps that is why your species is weak. You waste time arguing about choices when you should be serving the greater good." Weak, laughed, but there was no humor in it. My species survived nuclear war, environmental collapse, and near extinction. We clawed our way back from the edge and built a civilization that reaches across the stars. We did that because we refused to give up, refused to just accept our fate. That's not weakness. That's strength. The two of them stared at each other, neither willing to look away first. Around them, the diplomats from both sides started talking urgently, trying to figure out what to do, but barely heard them. All he could see was this alien princess who expected him to give up his entire life for politics. Ambassador put a hand on shoulder. "Step outside with me, now." Her voice left no room for argument. Followed her out of the hall into a quiet corridor. As soon as the doors closed, turned to him. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea about this. I need to contact Earth and find out what's happening." "My father," said quietly. "Is he part of this, the Shadow Council?" His face told him everything he needed to know. Director is a senior member, yes. Leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. His own father had sold him to aliens to prevent a war. The betrayal hurt worse than anything else. "Can we break this treaty?" "I don't know yet," admitted. "But if what they're saying is true and breaking this marriage means war—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "So I have to marry an alien princess who thinks I'm weak, or millions of people die." Opened his eyes and looked at the ceiling. "That's what you're saying?" "I'm saying we need more information. I'm saying don't make any decisions yet." Squeezed his shoulder. "But I'm also saying that, yes, the stakes are very high. The nearly destroyed our outer colonies last year, if this treaty falls apart." Nodded slowly. He understood. This wasn't about him anymore. Maybe it never had been. He thought about all the families living in those colonies, all the people who would die if war came again. He thought about his duty as a diplomat, as an Earthman. But he also thought about freedom, about choice, about the right to live his own life. "I want to talk to my father," he said finally. "I'll arrange it," promised. "Come on. We need to go back inside and at least pretend we can handle this professionally." When they returned to the hall, Princess Lyra was still standing exactly where they'd left her, straight and proud and completely emotionless. She looked at like he was a problem to be solved, not a person to be married. Looked back at her and made a decision. If he had to do this, if he really had to marry this alien princess, he wasn't going to make it easy. He wasn't going to just accept his fate like a good little soldier. He was human, and humans fought for their freedom no matter what. The communication screen flickered to life and saw his father's face. Director looked older than remembered, with new lines around his eyes and more in his hair. They stared at each other in silence for a long moment. "You knew," said quietly. "You signed the treaty, you agreed to this." "I did," admitted. His voice was heavy with tiredness. 6 months ago, the Empire gave us an ultimatum. Agree to a peace bond through marriage, or they would launch a full invasion of our colonies. We had 3 days to decide. And you couldn't tell me, couldn't give me any warning. If we told you, you would have run. You would have hidden or refused, and Earth would have lost its chance at peace." Leaned closer to the camera. "I know you're angry. I know this feels like a betrayal. But 2 million people live in those colonies. 2 million lives hung in the balance." Wanted to shout, to argue, to make his father understand how wrong this was. But part of him, the diplomatic part, understood the impossible choice. "You still should have told me." "Maybe," said softly. "But son, I chose to save millions. I chose to give Earth a future. And I chose you because I know you're strong enough to handle this. You're smart, adaptable, and you care about people. You're the best chance we have at making this work." "I don't want to be the best chance," said. "I just want to be myself. Sometimes we don't get what we want. Sometimes we get what we need to be." Image flickered. "I have to go, but please think about this. Not just as my son, but as someone who can save countless lives." The screen went dark, sat alone in his quarters, feeling more lost than ever. The next day, Ambassador found him at breakfast. The delegation has requested that you and Princess Lyra spend time together. It's part of their courtship protocols. Courtship? Almost laughed. She looks at me like I'm a chair she has to sit in. Nevertheless, the treaty requires it. You'll meet in the courtship chambers every day for at least 2 hours. Handed him a data pad. I've loaded information about culture. Read it. Learn it. This will be easier if you understand where she's coming from. Spent the morning reading. What he learned made him feel worse, not better. The empire was built on rigid social structures. Everyone had a place, a role, a purpose assigned to them at birth. Nobles married who they were told to marry. Warriors fought where they were told to fight. The idea of choosing your own path was considered selfish and destructive. When he entered the courtship chamber that afternoon, Princess Lyra was already there. She stood by a large window that looked out at the stars, her hands clasped behind her back. Without turning, she said, "You are late." "By 3 minutes," replied. "On Earth, that's considered on time. On that is considered disrespectful." She finally turned to face him. In the softer light of the chamber, she looked less intimidating, almost normal if you ignored the glowing skin and black eyes. "Sit. We must talk." They sat across from each other at a small table. An awkward silence stretched between them. "I read about your culture," said finally. "Arranged marriages are normal for you." "Yes, marriage is about duty, not emotion. It is about joining families, creating alliances, producing heirs." Lyra spoke like she was reciting facts from a textbook. "My parents did not love each other when they married. Love came later, perhaps. It does not matter." "It matters to humans," said. "We believe marriage should be about partnership, about choosing someone you want to spend your life with." "A foolish belief," Lyra said flatly. "Emotions change, duty does not. What happens when your love fades, your marriage crumbles, our way is stronger. Our way gives people freedom." "Freedom is chaos." Lyra's black eyes fixed on him. "Your people spend their whole lives making choices, changing their minds, chasing feelings. You waste so much time. We know our place, we fulfill our role, and our society runs smoothly." Felt his temper rising. "Is that what you think? That humans are just chaotic children who don't know what's good for them?" "I think humans are young. Your species only reached the stars 300 years ago. We have had star travel for 5,000 years. We know things you have yet to learn." "Like how to crush individual freedom," stood up. "Like how to turn people into tools for the state. No thanks. I'll take our chaos over your prison any day." For the first time, real emotion showed on Lyra's face. Anger. "You insult me and my people with your ignorance. You know nothing of our ways." "I know enough. I know you're so locked into your roles that you can't even imagine another way to live." They glared at each other across the table. Then Lyra stood as well. "This session is over. I will report that you are an unsuitable match. Perhaps the treaty can be renegotiated with someone more civilized." She walked toward the door, her back straight and proud, but something made call after her. "Wait." Lyra stopped but didn't turn around. "Tell me something," said. "Did you want this? Did you want to marry a human you've never met?" "What I want does not matter. I am third princess. This is my duty." "But if you could choose, if duty didn't matter, would you want this?" Lyra's shoulders tensed. For a long moment she said nothing. Then so quietly almost didn't hear, she said, "I wanted to command fleets. I wanted to earn glory in battle, to write my name in the stars. Instead, I am given to aliens as a peace offering." She turned to face him and her expression was carefully blank again. "But what I want does not matter. I will do my duty. The question is whether you will do yours." She left before could respond. He stood alone in the courtship chamber, thinking about what she'd said. For the first time, he realized Lyra might be just as trapped as he was. That evening, there was a formal dinner with both delegations. Sat between ambassador and a human trade negotiator, picking at his food, and trying to ignore the nobles across the table. They spoke among themselves in their own language, occasionally glancing at the humans with what looked like disdain. Then one of them, a male noble with elaborate armor, spoke in English. "Tell me, Ambassador, when did Earth develop faster than light travel?" 260 years ago, replied politely. Fascinating. And before that you were trapped on your single planet, yes, fighting each other, destroying your own environment. The noble smiled, but it wasn't friendly. How primitive. We were exploring the galaxy while your ancestors still lived in caves. Several laughed, felt anger building in his chest. "You know what's fascinating to me," said, his voice cutting through the laughter. Everyone turned to look at him. "That your people had a 5,000-year head start and humans still caught up." The noble's smile vanished. "What did you say?" "Stood up. You think we're primitive. Maybe we are, but we're also survivors. 200 years ago, Earth was dying. We'd poisoned our air, our water, our soil. Nuclear war had killed billions. Most species would have given up and died, but humans didn't. We cleaned the planet. We built new cities. We reached for the stars with nothing but determination and duct tape." He was really getting going now, the words pouring out. "You had 5,000 years to perfect your technology, your society, your fleets. We had 3 centuries, and we built a civilization that spans dozens of star systems. We didn't have ancient knowledge passed down. We didn't have perfect social systems. What we had was refusal. We refused to die. We refused to give up. We refused to accept our fate." Looked directly at the noble who'd insulted them. "You call us primitive, I call us resilient. You say we're chaotic, I say we're adaptable. You've spent 5,000 years perfecting a rigid system. We spent 300 years learning to survive anything. So yes, we stumbled into the stars, but we're here now and we're not going anywhere." The room was silent. Ambassador looked like she wanted to smile, but was trying not to. The nobles stared at with expressions ranging from shock to anger. But Princess Lyra stared at him with something else. Interest. Real, genuine interest. She raised her glass. "A passionate speech of Earth. Perhaps there is more to your species than I believed." It wasn't much. It wasn't acceptance or friendship. But it was a start. And for the first time since this nightmare began, felt like maybe, just maybe, he could survive this after all. Couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about Princess Lyra's words at dinner, about the look in her eyes when she'd said there might be more to humanity than she believed. Around 3 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went to the station's library. If he was going to marry this alien princess, he needed to understand who she really was. The library's computer system had records on all the nobles. When searched for information on Lyra, he expected to find typical royal biography material. What he found instead made him sit up straight in his chair. Princess Lyra wasn't just royalty. She was a decorated military commander. At age 25, she'd led a fleet against raiders in the Outer Rim and won a battle that military experts said was impossible. She developed new tactical formations that were now taught in military academies. She'd earned the Silver Star of Valor, their highest military honor, 3 times. She was brilliant. She was a warrior. She was everything her culture valued most. So why was she being married off to a human? Dug deeper into the records. He found references to political tensions in the court, rumors of the first and second princesses feeling threatened by their younger sister's popularity with the military. There were hints that the emperor himself feared Lyra might challenge the throne someday. This marriage wasn't just about peace with Earth. It was about getting rid of a princess who had become too powerful, too popular, too dangerous to the established order. Just like him, Lyra was a victim of politics. The realization changed everything. The next day, when they met in the courtship chamber, saw Lyra differently. She stood by the window like always, straight and proud, but now he could see the tension in her shoulders, the carefully controlled emotion in her face. "I read about your military career," said without preamble. The Battle of Station, that was you. Lyra turned, surprise flickering across her features. You researched me. Of course I did. If we're supposed to get married, I should know who you are. Walked closer. You're not just some princess doing her duty. You're a war hero. You've saved thousands of lives. You're a genius tactician. Lyra corrected quietly. I was those things. Now I am a peace offering to aliens. Because your family was afraid of you. Lyra's black eyes widened. You should not say such things. It's true though, isn't it? Your sisters saw you as a threat. Your father worried you were too popular with the military, so they found a way to get rid of you that looked honorable. Sat down at the table. They did the same thing to me. My father and the Shadow Council decided I was expendable. They sold us both to save themselves political trouble. For a long moment, Lyra didn't move. Then she walked to the table and sat across from him. You understand, then, what it feels like to have your life chosen for you. Yeah, I understand. They sat in silence, but it was different from yesterday's angry silence. This was the silence of two people who'd found unexpected common ground. Tell me about Earth, Lyra said suddenly. Not the politics or the history. Tell me what it's like to live there. So told her. He talked about growing up in Seoul District, about the mix of ancient and modern architecture, about street food vendors and virtual reality cafes and parks filled with cherry trees. He told her about human art and music, about how every person could create whatever they wanted, be whoever they wanted. That sounds chaotic, Lyra said, but there was curiosity in her voice now, not judgment. It is chaotic, admitted, but it's also beautiful. People have freedom to make mistakes, to change their minds, to discover who they really are, not who they're told to be. I have never changed my mind about anything, Lyra said softly. From the moment I was born, my path was set. Military training, tactical studies, command experience. Then marriage, heirs, supporting my sisters from the shadows. Every day of my life was planned before I lived it. That sounds horrible. It is what I know. Lyra looked at her hands. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered what it would be like to choose, to wake up and decide my own day, to want something just because I wanted it, not because it was my duty. Pulled out his personal data pad. Watch this. He pulled up a video and turned the screen toward Lyra. It was a historical drama from Korea, dubbed into English. The scene showed a young woman refusing an arranged marriage, running away to become a scholar instead. It was melodramatic and over the top, but Lyra watched with complete focus. When the woman's father caught her and she gave an impassioned speech about freedom and choice, Lyra leaned forward. Her father, Lyra whispered. She chose her own path. That's what humans do. We defy, we choose. It doesn't always work out, but at least we try. They watched 3 more episodes together. Lyra asked constant questions about human culture, about how families worked, about what people did when they weren't following orders. Answered as best he could and found himself enjoying the conversation. Over the next week, their daily meetings changed completely. Instead of fighting, they talked. Lyra taught about military strategy, and he was amazed by the depth of her tactical knowledge. He showed her human literature, music, and art. She was particularly fascinated by paintings, the idea that people created images just for beauty, not purpose. One day, Lyra asked, if you could have chosen freely, what would your life look like? Thought about it. I'd still be a diplomat, I think. I like helping people understand each other, building bridges between different groups, but I'd travel more, see different worlds, meet different species. And someday I'd find someone who loved me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. We'd build a life together based on choice, not obligation. That sounds nice, Lyra said wistfully. Then she seemed to catch herself. Though impractical. Maybe, but don't you want something like that too? Lyra was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I wanted to explore, to see the galaxy beyond war and strategy. I wanted to find worlds no had ever seen, to make discoveries, to know what lay beyond the borders of the empire. But third princesses do not explore. They do their duty. What if? Hesitated, then continued. What if we made a deal? If we have to get married, if we have to do this thing neither of us chose, then let's at least make it bearable. Let's be partners, not prisoners. You give me freedom within this marriage, and I'll give you the same. We'll support each other instead of resenting each other. Lyra stared at him. A partnership of equals, that is not the way. Maybe it could be our way. Something shifted in Lyra's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Our way, I like the sound of that. That afternoon had another idea. He found Ambassador in her office. I need your help with something crazy. How crazy? Asked, looking wary. I want to change the wedding ceremony. Make it a fusion of earth and traditions, showing equal respect to both cultures. Nearly choked on her tea. They are extremely traditional. They'll never agree to changing a ceremony that's been the same for thousands of years. Then we'll be the first to change it. That's what this whole marriage is supposed to represent, right? Two cultures coming together. How can we do that if one culture has to completely submit to the other's traditions? Studied him carefully. You've changed. A week ago you wanted to run away from this marriage. Now you're trying to reinvent it. A week ago I thought Lyra was just a cold alien who saw me as a tool. Now I know she's a person who's just as trapped as I am. If we're going to do this, we should do it right. And she agrees with this crazy plan. Not yet, but I think she will. When proposed the idea to Lyra that evening, she looked shocked. Change the ceremony, that is unprecedented. So is marrying a human, pointed out. Lyra, think about it. Your people value tradition, but they also value strength and honor. What's more honorable than two cultures meeting as equals? What's stronger than being brave enough to create something new? Lyra paced back and forth, her mind clearly racing. My people will say it dishonors our traditions. And my people will say it shows respect for both sides. Listen, I know this is huge, but isn't that the point? We're supposed to represent a new era of cooperation. Let's actually do it. Lyra stopped packing and looked at him. Really looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. You are very strange. You argue like a warrior, but you think like a peacemaker. You defy tradition, but you seek honor. You confuse me. Is that a yes or a no? A small smile touched Lyra's lips. It was the first time had seen her smile, and it transformed her face. It is a yes. Let us confuse everyone together. That night realized something that both excited and terrified him. He was starting to like Lyra, not as an obligation or a political necessity, but as a person. She was sharp and curious and brave in ways he hadn't expected. When she let her guard down, she had a dry sense of humor that made him laugh. This was still an arranged marriage. This was still something forced on both of them. But maybe, just maybe, they could make it into something good, something real, something chosen, even if the beginning wasn't their choice. The day before the wedding ceremony, Unity's Reach Station buzzed with activity. Human and workers decorated the Great Hall together, hanging banners from both worlds side by side. Ambassador had worked miracles getting both governments to agree to the modified ceremony. It wasn't perfect, and there were many complaints, but it was happening. Stood in the corridor outside the Great Hall, watching the preparations. He wore formal Earth diplomatic clothes, a simple but elegant black suit with silver threading. Tomorrow, he would put on wedding attire that combined human and styles. Tomorrow, his life would change forever. You look nervous, a voice said behind him. He turned to see Commander, head of the station's security team. She was a short woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She'd been friends since they both trained at the diplomatic academy years ago. I am nervous, admitted. This is insane. I'm marrying an alien princess tomorrow. An alien princess who you actually seem to like now, observed. I've seen you two together. The way you look at her has changed. Felt his face heat up. We're just making the best of a bad situation. Sure, keep telling yourself that. Smiled, then her expression turned serious. Listen, I need to tell you something. We've been monitoring communications and there's chatter about protests, both from Earth's Humanity First movement and from some group called the Purity Circle. Protests here on the station. No, back on the home worlds. But some of the messages are concerning. Talking about stopping the wedding, about preserving racial purity, that kind of garbage. I've increased security just to be safe. Do you think there's a real threat? Hesitated. I think there are people on both sides who hate this marriage and what it represents. Will they actually do anything? I hope not. But I'm being careful. They talked for a few more minutes, then left to check on her security teams. Went to his quarters to rest before tomorrow's ceremony. He tried to sleep but couldn't. His mind kept spinning with thoughts of the wedding, of Lyra, of the future they were building together. Around midnight, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Jumped out of bed and grabbed his emergency communicator. What's happening? His voice crackled through, tight with stress. Explosions in the diplomatic quarter. Life support is failing in sections 3 and 4. Get to the emergency shelter now. Ran into the corridor. Red emergency lights flashed and he could hear screaming in the distance. Other people rushed past him, heading for the shelters. He started to follow, then stopped. Lyra's quarters were in section 3. He turned and ran the other way. Where are you going? His voice shouted through the communicator. That's the wrong direction. Lyra's in section 3. I have to get her. The guards will handle it. You need to get to safety. I'm not leaving her. Shut off the communicator and ran faster. Section 3 was chaos. Smoke filled the air and pieces of the ceiling had fallen. Emergency barriers were sealing off damaged areas. Covered his mouth with his sleeve and pushed forward. He found Lyra's quarters and pounded on the door. Lyra, Lyra, are you there? The door opened and Lyra stood there in simple clothing, her formal armor discarded. Her guards lay unconscious on the floor behind her. What are you doing here? Making sure you're safe. What happened to your guards? Gas grenade. I held my breath, but they were not prepared. Lyra looked past him at the smoke-filled corridor. This was an attack. We need to get to the emergency shelters. But before they could move, an explosion rocked the section. They were thrown against the wall. When his ears stopped ringing, he heard his voice through his communicator again. All personnel, the attackers are trying to breach the reactor core. If they succeed, the station will be destroyed. Security teams are responding, but we're outnumbered. And Lyra looked at each other. Without speaking, they both knew what they had to do. The reactor is 3 sections away, Lyra said. Can you fight? I can try, replied. Can you lead? Always. They ran through the damaged station together. Lyra moved like a warrior, graceful and deadly. She'd grabbed a weapon from one of her unconscious guards, a strange energy staff that hummed when she activated it. When they encountered their first group of attackers, masked figures in dark suits, Lyra took them down with efficient precision, grabbed one of their fallen weapons and followed her lead. He'd never been in real combat before. His training was all diplomatic, all about words and negotiation. But adrenaline and fear made him sharp. When an attacker came at him, he reacted on instinct, blocking and striking. It wasn't pretty or skilled, but it worked. They reached the reactor level to find it swarming with attackers. Security personnel were pinned down, unable to reach the core. In the center of the room, through a window, could see someone working on the reactor controls. They're going to cause a meltdown, Lyra said. If they succeed, everyone on this station dies. Can we stop them? My combat skills can clear a path, but I do not know human reactor technology. Can you fix it? Thought fast. He'd studied station operations as part of his diplomatic training, including basic engineering. It wasn't much, but it might be enough. Maybe, if we can get there in time. Then we fight. Lyra raised her energy staff. Stay behind me. Do not die. That would be inconvenient for tomorrow's wedding. Despite everything, almost laughed. I'll do my best. Lyra charged forward like a force of nature. She fought with skill, could barely follow, taking down attackers with strikes that looked more like dance than combat. Security personnel saw them and, providing covering fire, stayed close to Lyra, protecting her back, taking down anyone who tried to flank her. They reached the reactor room. Inside, a man and woman worked frantically at the controls, their faces hidden behind masks. When they saw Lyra, the woman pulled a detonator from her belt. "Stop or I'll detonate now," she screamed. "We won't let your unholy union poison our people." "You're willing to kill everyone here," Lyra demanded. "Hundreds of innocents." "Better dead than corrupted," the man shouted. "Humans and don't mix. This marriage is an abomination." While they shouted, studied the reactor display. The saboteurs had the safety systems and destabilized the core. In about 3 minutes, it would reach critical mass and explode. Even if security took them down now, the damage was done. "Unless—" "Lyra, keep them talking," whispered. Then he ran to the wall panel and started pulling off the cover. "What are you doing?" the woman shrieked. "Something crazy," muttered. He could see the emergency venting system, the one designed to dump excess heat into space. It was never meant to handle a reactor meltdown, but if he could jury-rig the flow controls, reroute the coolant system, and override the safety limiters. It was insane. It violated every safety protocol, but it might work. "Humans," Lyra said loudly, drawing the saboteur's attention back to her, "are very good at doing impossible things. You should remember that." His hands flew over the controls. He pulled wires, reconnected circuits, typed override codes he'd memorized from training manuals. Sweat dripped into his eyes. The reactor warning alarms were deafening. 30 seconds to critical, a computer voice announced. "Almost there," breathed. He made one final connection, said a quick prayer to any god listening, and activated the emergency protocol. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the venting system roared to life. Coolant flooded the reactor chamber. The temperature readings started dropping. Slowly, impossibly, the reactor began to stabilize. 20 seconds to critical, 15 seconds, 10 seconds. The core temperature hit the safe zone. Crisis averted, reactor stable. Collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Lyra had disarmed the saboteurs, and security was rushing in to arrest them. Appeared, her face covered in soot and blood. "How the hell did you do that?" she asked. "Duct tape and prayer," said weakly. "Humanity's two greatest technologies." Lyra walked over and pulled him to his feet. Her black eyes studied his face. "You saved us. You saved everyone." "We saved everyone," corrected. "You cleared the path, I just improvised the ending." They stood there, bruised and exhausted, surrounded by smoke and chaos. Then Lyra did something never expected. She leaned down and kissed him. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was fierce and desperate and real. When she pulled back, saw emotion in her eyes for the first time. Real, honest emotion. "You could have escaped," Lyra said quietly. "You could have reached the shelters and been safe, but you came for me instead. Why?" Touched her face gently. "Because you're not just a treaty anymore, Lyra. You're not just a duty or an obligation. You're Lyra, and I don't abandon people I care about." "Care about?" Her voice was soft. "Yeah, I care about you. Somewhere between arguing and laughing and planning this crazy wedding, I started caring about you. Is that okay?" Lyra smiled, a real smile, bright and beautiful. "Yes, it is very okay, because I care about you too." Around them, security finished rounding up the attackers. Ambassador arrived, looking horrified at the destruction, but barely noticed. He was too busy looking at Lyra, at this alien princess who'd somehow become the person he wanted to protect most in the universe. Tomorrow they would get married, but tonight they'd become something more than an arranged match. They'd become partners, they'd become real. The morning sun filtered through the great hall's windows, casting patterns of light across the floor where human and workers had spent the night repairing damage from the attack. The wedding would happen today, as planned, but now it meant something different. It wasn't just politics anymore. It was personal. Stood in his quarters looking at himself in the mirror. His wedding outfit was truly unique, designed by tailors from both worlds working together. The base was a traditional Korean hanbok in deep blue, but the fabric seemed to shimmer like starlight. Silver embroidery traced patterns across the sleeves, mixing Korean cloud designs with star charts. He looked like himself, but also like something new, something that bridged two worlds. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. His father entered, looking older and more tired than before. Director said softly, "I know I don't have the right to be here, but I wanted to say something before the ceremony. You came all the way from Earth. I watched the security footage from last night. I saw you risk your life to save her, to save everyone." His voice cracked. "I was wrong, son. I thought I was making the hard choice, the necessary sacrifice. But you showed me something I'd forgotten. Sometimes the brave choice isn't sacrificing freedom for duty. It's choosing to create something better than what you were given." Felt tears prick his eyes. "Dad, I'm proud of you, not because you're doing your duty, but because you're making it your own. You're building something real with Lyra. That's worth more than any treaty." Pulled his son into a hug. "I'm sorry I took your choice away, but I'm grateful you found a way to choose anyway." They held each other for a moment, healing old wounds, then stepped back and smiled. "Now go. Your bride is waiting, and apparently she's terrifying everyone by insisting on doing part of her vows in Korean." Laughed through his tears. "She what?" "Go find out." The great hall was packed with people from both worlds. Human diplomats sat beside nobles. Earth military officers stood near warriors. On any other day, these groups would barely speak to each other. Today, they gathered to witness something unprecedented. Walked down the aisle, his heart pounding. At the far end, on a platform decorated with flowers from Earth and crystalline structures from, Princess Lyra waited. She took his breath away. Her wedding gown combined armor with flowing earth silk. The metal pieces caught the light, making her seem to glow, while the silk moved around her like water. Her hair, usually pulled back severely, fell in long waves. She wore a small crown, but also flowers woven through her hair in the human style. When reached the platform, Lyra smiled at him. A real, genuine smile that made his heart skip. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "You look nervous," she whispered back. "Don't be, we face this together." Ambassador stood between them, along with High Priest. Both would officiate, giving equal weight to each culture's traditions. "We gather today," began, "to witness not just a marriage, but a promise. A promise that two different worlds can create something beautiful together." High Priest raised his hands. "We witness the joining of two houses, two bloodlines, two futures into one path." The ceremony flowed smoothly, alternating between human and traditions. They exchanged rings, a human custom. They performed the binding of houses, a ritual where they each cut their palm and mixed their blood in a ceremonial cup. Was surprised that blood was the same red as human blood. Somehow, that made him feel connected to Lyra in a new way. Then came the vows. This was the part he'd been most nervous about. They'd written their own words, breaking from tradition entirely. Spoke first. "Lyra, when we met, I saw you as a prison, something forced on me that would take away my freedom. But you taught me that freedom isn't about being alone. It's about choosing who stands beside you. I choose you, Lyra. Not because a treaty says I must, but because you are brave, brilliant, and beautiful. Because you challenge me and inspire me. Because when I thought of my future without you, it felt empty. I promise to be your partner, your equal, and your friend. I promise to give you the freedom to be yourself. and I promise to build with you something neither of our worlds has seen before." He spoke in formal tongue, the language he'd been secretly studying for weeks. The guests gasped in surprise. Lyra's eyes shone with unshed tears. Then Lyra spoke, and her first words were in Korean. The human guests leaned forward, shocked and moved. "When our families chose us to wed, I believed I knew what marriage meant. Duty, obligation, sacrifice. But you showed me marriage could be choice, partnership, growth. You taught me that traditions can change, that rigid paths can bend, that someone from across the stars can understand me better than my own family ever did." She switched to English so everyone could understand. "I was a warrior princess with no war to fight. You gave me a new battle, the battle to build something better than what came before. I choose you, not because honor demands it, but because my heart demands it. I promise to stand beside you, not above or below. I promise to protect your freedom as fiercely as I protect your life. And I promise that our children, human and both, will grow up knowing they can choose their own stars to reach for." There wasn't a dry eye in the hall, human or. They completed the ceremony, sealing their bond with a kiss that felt like the start of something incredible. The crowd erupted in applause, cheers mixing in multiple languages. At the reception, something magical happened. The rigid separation between species began to dissolve. Human and guests mingled, talking and laughing. Ambassador danced with a general. Human musicians played alongside singers, creating music that was strange and wonderful. And Lyra stood together, watching it all. "Look at them," Lyra said softly. "A week ago they would barely speak. Now they celebrate together." "That's what happens when you give people permission to be different," replied. "They stop being afraid and start being curious." Commander approached with a data pad. "Sorry to interrupt the celebration, but I thought you'd want to see this. Messages are pouring in from across both territories. Humans and watching the ceremony, talking about the speech you two gave. There are protests dissolving, extremist groups losing members. People are actually listening." "One wedding can't change everything," said. "No," agreed, "but it's a start and starts matter." Later, and Lyra stood before a holographic link connecting to both Earth's parliament and the imperial court. Leaders from both governments watched them. Lyra spoke first. "Honored leaders of the Empire, I stand before you as someone who has learned what it means to change. Your empire is 5,000 years old, built on tradition and honor. These are good things. But I have learned from humans that growth is also good, that adapting is not weakness but strength, that choosing our path is the highest honor of all." Continued, "Leaders of Earth, we pride ourselves on freedom, on choice, on the right to live as we wish. But sometimes we forget that duty can be noble too, that structure has value, that thinking beyond ourselves makes us stronger. They taught me that." Together, they made their announcement. "We propose the creation of New Dawn, a colony world governed jointly by humans and a place where both cultures contribute equally, where children grow up learning both languages, where we prove that different species can build something better together than either could alone." There was silence on both ends of the link. Then the Earth Premier stood. "The Parliament will vote on this proposal, but you have my support." The Emperor rose as well. "The Imperial Court must deliberate, but you have shown courage this day. That counts for much." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. It was possibility, and possibility was enough. 6 months later, and Lyra stood on the surface of New Dawn, watching construction crews from both worlds work side by side. The colony was taking shape faster than anyone expected. Humans brought their adaptability and creative problem-solving, brought their advanced technology and organizational skills. Together, they were building something neither could have achieved alone. Lyra rested her hand on her stomach, which was just beginning to show. Their child, the first human hybrid, was growing inside her. Medical experts from both worlds were amazed at how well the genetics had combined. The baby would be healthy, unique, and a symbol of what was possible. "Do you think they'll accept our child?" Lyra asked. Some on both sides still resist. Some will always resist, said. He put his hand over hers. But look around. Look at what we've built in just 6 months. Human children playing strategy games. Adults learning to cook human food. Mixed crews working without even thinking about who's human and whose. Our families chose us to wed, Lyra said softly. But we chose what came after. We chose to make it real. Do you ever regret it? Asked. I know you wanted to command fleets to explore the unknown. Lyra looked at him and her smile was brilliant. I am exploring the unknown. Every day with you is an adventure I never could have imagined. And as for commanding, well, she gestured at the colony spreading before them. I command nothing here, and yet I have more influence than I ever did as a princess, because people listen by choice, not by obligation. A child ran past, chasing a human child, both laughing in a game that mixed elements from both cultures. An elderly human man taught a group of young how to prepare kimchi. An engineer showed human workers how to use crystalline power cores. My father sent me a message yesterday, said. He said he's proud of what we're building, that we took the sacrifice he forced on us and turned it into something beautiful. My sisters sent a message too, Lyra added. They are jealous. They remain trapped in their traditional roles while I am free to build a new world. The Emperor is not pleased with them. They laughed together, the sound carrying across the colony. As the sun set, painting the sky in colors that existed on neither Earth nor, thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first shocking announcement, through anger and resistance, to understanding and connection, to love. Real love, chosen and built and earned. Our families chose us to wed, said, echoing Lyra's earlier words. And we chose to make them right in a way they never imagined. Lyra kissed him as the sky turned dark and stars appeared. Stars from both their home worlds, visible together in the new dawn sky. The bond stands, Lyra whispered. Not because we must make it stand, but because we want it to. That is the difference. That is everything. In the distance, construction continued. Homes were being built, schools planned, gardens planted. Human and working together, no longer as separate species trying to coexist, but as partners creating something new. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges, conflicts, moments of doubt. But Lyra had proven something important. That arranged marriages could become real partnerships. That duty could transform into choice. That two different worlds could create something better together. They had taken what was forced upon them and made it their own. They had refused to be victims of politics and instead became architects of change. They had shown both their peoples that bridges could be built, that differences could be strengths, that love could grow in the most unexpected places. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but the stubborn, wonderful belief that anything could be changed, improved, or rebuilt. That no path was set in stone. That even aliens who'd traveled the stars for 5,000 years could learn something new from humans who'd barely been out there for 300. And Lyra stood together under the stars, holding each other close, ready to face whatever came next. Together, as equals, as partners, as proof that sometimes the bonds others choose for us become the bonds we wouldn't trade for anything in the universe. The story of how humanity convinced an ancient empire that change was possible had begun with two people who refused to accept their fate. And it would continue with a child not yet born, with a colony still being built, with a future that both species would write together. Our families chose us to wed, Lyra said one last time, smiling in the starlight. But we chose to love, and that makes all the difference.